Welcome to the Rafe Granger Podcast.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rafe Granger, and this is the Rafe Granger Podcast. Some of you may get your way to this for the first time, so I thought I'd introduce myself a little bit. I am a business coach, formerly a practicing attorney. I ran my own law practice for about 20 years, and prior to that, I was a high school English teacher. And recently, I spent a lot of my time conducting these Realize Masterclasses, I call them, where we get 8 to 9 business people in a room once a month, and we talk about concerns of business people, entrepreneurs, and living the life they really want to live in their business and in their life. I also occasionally go talk to businesses and executives and do mindfulness training, and have also spoken to law students on that very same issue of dealing with anxiety and the rigors of law school. And a lot of times I get asked, and I just got asked recently from one of my masterclass participants for one of her clients who said the phrase, "I tried to meditate, but I can't do it." And so I've been wanting to do this for a long time now. And I decided, normally I'm a podcaster, and I decided to go ahead and throw the camera on too. And that way there's something for YouTube. So I want to do a brief introduction of the myths and misconceptions of meditation, and the why I started and where the benefits are. And depending on time there, might even do talk about how to get the materials you need and how to get set up for meditation. That might come in a separate segment, I don't know, and then do a sample one for here. So here's the myths and misconceptions, starting with what one of my masterclass participants wrote into me for her client, which is, "I tried it and I can't do it." And there's this belief that what meditation is about my mind has to be clear, completely clear. I can't make my mind clear for 10 minutes, let alone an hour. I can't sit still for an hour. Have you met me? I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I'm in a go, go, go. That's what I thought going in. I thought the point of meditation was to be void and absent of all thought. And then when I learned that that's not what it is, that in fact our thoughts come in unbidden by us or not. We don't say, "I'll have a thought now." Our thoughts are there. And when I learned that the point of it was not to get rid of them all and or not have them all, that one may even argue it's impossible and maybe we'd be dead if we didn't have any thoughts. Who knows, right? So that's myth and misconception number one, is that guess what? You will have thoughts. You'll have tons of thoughts. You'll have racing thoughts all during meditation. That is meditation. And you're doing meditation when you do that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Second myth and misconception, especially, out in the business world or the attorney world, is that's for like yogis and spiritual people. They're going to sit and chant Shanti, 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 or Om, or, that's not for me. I'm like a regular person. I too had that thought and misconception. Even though I practiced yoga for many years, I've deepened my power yoga practice under the Baptiste methodology just very recently, past maybe 5 years or so. And I sort of thought like, meditation, that's for people who can kind of just be nicer people than me, and they're just more spiritual. And then I learned that's a falsehood. And then people who say, I don't believe in that kind of foo-foo stuff. Rafe, I believe in science and stuff that works. Well, I have news for you. There's a lot of science behind why meditation works. And something interesting that I learned is that what's the difference between meditation and mindfulness? I heard on a podcast somewhere that mindfulness is the same thing as a meditation practice, in that doctors didn't want to call it meditations because it might have been poo-pooed in the medical journals. So they created its new name, which is called mindfulness. It can mean many different things today, but a lot of times I get asked that in my business seminars of like, what's the difference between mindfulness and meditation? And for the purpose of this podcast, there's no difference. A little history of me and where I started and why. So my wife is a yoga practitioner, and I view her as being super knowledgeable in this field, and just really knows a deep understanding of people, and is empathetic and compassionate and deep understanding of concepts, versus me, where I feel like I just very analytical, logical. One of my favorite heroes when I was a kid was Spock, both mixed with Captain Kirk, because Captain Kirk was just, awesome, and he could fight and do that roly thing where he would like roll backwards and fling somebody over. You can tell my generation now just by me talking about Star Trek. But and then I went to law school. I mean, I was an English major, which is interesting. It's not a very logical, well, one would argue within the practice of itself it is, but writing and poetry and Shakespeare and stuff. And then went to law school, which is very analytical. So I was like, I don't meditation's not going to help me. That's for yoga people. Well, she had said to me, I really needed to go to this training called Level 1. It's a Baron Baptiste training called Journey into Power. And I fought it for years. I was like, I'm not going to go to that. I'm not a yoga teacher. What am I going to do there? She's like, no, it's not for yoga teachers. It's for your life, and you'll just feel better. And so I went there and learned a few things. And that could be the segment of another episode of the benefits of going to Level 1, Journey into Power. But what I learned two things. We meditated every day. And that was the first time I'd ever been part of a guided meditation practice where somebody taught me how to do it. Like they taught us how to sit. They taught us how to be comfortable. It was a guided meditation. They taught us what to think during it, how to breathe, all of these techniques. I'd never done that before. And, what I found there was I ended up discovering, again, topic for another podcast, but I ended up discovering that I had a lot of anger. I was angry about a lot of things. And if you would have met me on the street prior to that, nobody ever would have said Rafe's an angry guy. I'm not a pound my fist kind of guy. When I was a lawyer, I was not my pound my fist on the podium kind of an attorney. I didn't I don't lash out with people in anger. And a lot of people would say I'm very nice. But I guess inside I had a lot of things I didn't even know I was angry about. I remember one of the things I was angry about, for real, it's going to sound funny, but I was, that it's not 1985, which is when I grew up. I wanted my children to have that kind of upbringing where they could play outside and have friends to play with, and everybody's overscheduled and that kind of rant. Again, separate segue from this podcast. But I learned that, and this is all going to tie into meditation. And then when I started to meditate daily, I felt good afterwards. My body felt lighter. My mind felt lighter. So I'm like, that's pretty handy. Didn't feel anything after that. Didn't notice anything with anger after that. That came a lot later. But what it did after that was I saw a benefit of doing it. So I began to practice it. My aim was 2 to 3 times a week, nowhere near it. If I remembered, it'd be like 1 time a week. But every time I did, I'd feel a little bit better. Sometimes it'd be 2 times a week. Sometimes it'd be 4 times a week. Sometimes I'd go to my yoga class, my wife teaching, and we would do a little meditation up front. So I would get it in there sometimes. And then what I began to learn, and from that training, I said, my business people that I'm working with, currently I'm a business coach, and I work with business people, and they would really benefit from this. I mean, even just 10 minutes of respite in a busy business day. So I learned that too, and we practice that in my business courses. And what I learned was all of a sudden, after like 3 months of sort of regularly doing it, I was less angry. And I actually caught myself being less angry. What would happen is, let's say I got in an argument with my wife that morning, and I'm really ticked off, and she said some things and sat on my last nerve, and I sat on her nerve, and just leave the house. And I'm just like, what I noticed was, by using the techniques I've been learning in meditation, that unconsciously I began to use the technique. The technique's a type of notice and letting go, which again, I'll get into in a little bit. But all of a sudden I noticed, like, oh my gosh, I was angry for way less longer. Where maybe I'd be angry for 3 hours about something, I was only angry for like 15 minutes. And I felt better the whole rest of the day. And when I figured that out, when it had what I call a hand grenade effect, so sure, I might meditate in the morning and feel great for 10 minutes after, but then on day 3, I could use the technique during my everyday life and not consciously call upon it. It just began to happen. I was like, whoa, this stuff is powerful. And that's when I began to study it, read more about it, and become more interested in how it would work. Here's one thing I learned, is that the goal is not to be empty of thoughts. They're going to happen. Your thoughts are there. The practice is the practice of noticing the thought. So there I am sitting in meditation. It's minute 3. I'm breathing. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden my mind's gone. It's off to its task list. I'm thinking of all the things I need to do. A typical meditation for me looks like this. oh man, I don't have 10 minutes to do this right now. I got to really get going. What I've tried to do is I try to do my meditation before I shower. I learned that if I try to do it after I shower, I feel too rushed and nervous and can't sit still. So I would do it before, kind of like a habit like brushing teeth. I would try to practice it. And I'd be sitting there and my mind goes like this. Okay, I'm counting my breath. Yeah, this is good. Oh, this feels good. 3 deep breaths. Yeah, this is awesome. I should do this more. Breathing's really good and these deep breaths are really helpful. And then my mind's gone and I can't even remember I'm sitting and I'm doing my to-do list. And then I start to feel like I got to get up and get moving. And then I'm like, no, my mind, mind you, this is meditation. What I'm describing to you, I've learned is meditation. It's not that I'm failing at meditation. And I'm saying, no, I'm supposed to be meditating. Come on, count your breaths. Okay, I get to number 3, mind's gone again. And the thoughts are back. And then, and I'm off for 2 more thoughts. And the next thing I know, the guided meditation, says something. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm back. That's normal. If that happens to you, that's absolutely normal. That's not a sign that you can't do it. Okay. Are there meditators that can keep their mind blank? I probably not, but who knows? I don't know every meditator on the planet. The other thing I learned is that I am not my thoughts. So I'm somebody that traditionally can have anxious thoughts and feelings. I used to define myself that way, say, I am anxious, or I am a person who suffers from anxiety. I don't believe that anymore. I'm not just a person. I'm a human. Sometimes I have thoughts and emotions that create the feeling of anxiety. And I know that sounds woo-woo. Trust me, 5 years ago, if you would have said that to my lawyer self 5 years ago in some CLE or something, I would have been like, okay, whatever, dude. Like, go say 3 ohms and float above your meditation pillow. That's not for me. So, they say there's no zealot like the convert, and perhaps that's me. But now, just the concept of listening through guided meditations where learning that I am not the thoughts that I'm having, that those are just thoughts coming in and thoughts going out. They are not me. They do not define me. Just that thought itself has given me power in my working life, in my relationships, and in my everyday happiness. So I wanted to share that with you as that's a benefit of having a meditation practice. Briefly, what is it that I would do? Well, I learned this again, and I used the Headspace app. That's the one I use. There's other ones. Just go out there, download it. There's like a free trial. Andy Petticombe is an awesome voice and an awesome teacher. I don't know him, but I feel like he's my teacher because he teaches me how to do this. And I've reached out and found one of his original books and read that book and just learned more. And I really can't say enough about the Headspace app. Just go use it. Just download it. I also, one of the things I teach in my masterclasses is thoughts don't create your new you. Actions create your new you. New actions create your new you. You don't have to know about meditation, like meditation, think you'll even do it. But if you take the new action and download it, that's a new action. If you then just press play on episode 1, even if you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, this isn't going to work. I'm listening to that Rafe guy. Do it. Just do the action. So in the meditation, what I learned is as we're sitting there, the thoughts come in, is the practice of noticing the thought and letting it go. Just go, oh, there's a thought. And then I just drop it, drop everything. Not even drop the thought. Just notice it and not try to drop it. Just notice it and just, oh, there's a thought. And then I go back to trying to count my breath again or listening to not even trying, counting my breath, listening to the sounds in the room. And through that, just that one practice in that 10 minutes, not only after do I feel better, a little bit lighter, mind's a little bit emptier, but what I noticed was later on in my life, I don't know, 6 months later of doing this practice of noticing, oh, there's a thought, and letting it go. There's even a deeper layer to that where you can notice the thought and then say, is it a thought or is it emotion? So I might go, thought, is there a feeling? Yes, anxiety. Move on. And you're touching that thought like a feather touching the edge of a very fine wine glass. That's the concept you want to think about. You're not attaching it. You're not judging it. I'm not sitting there going, how come I can't meditate? Why do I have all these thoughts? I'm supposed to be dropping my thoughts. Bah! That's how I began in the beginning, but through practice, that would go away. And then what I noticed again is during the day, I'll never forget there was this case I was working on. The other lawyer was just really persnickety. I felt that he was. Wasn't rude, but just, man, was just really covering everything with a fine-tooth comb, I felt. And I was getting irritated. I remember back in my full practice days, I would be angry about that for the whole 2 weeks that we worked together. Yeah, I'd see an email and I could be triggered into being like irritated. And with my meditation practice, I was able to go, huh, interesting, irritation, let it go. And then 15 minutes, I moved on and I'm living my life. And I wasn't shackled by this frustration and irritation and anger that I would feel over this case situation. Man, I wish I knew. This is why I wanted to do this podcast. I was talking to a colleague of mine who's a law professor, and he works with law students, and we were talking about the anxiety that can happen in a law practice. And boy, I wish I would have knew this, 10, 15 years ago. I was a bankruptcy attorney. And so in a bankruptcy, you'd go to these things called a 341 meeting, stands for statute 341. And there'd be this person called the United States trustee or assistant trustee would be impaneled to review a bankruptcy petition. And I always like to be so exact, I'm type A. I'm always wanted my petitions to be perfect. And it's both an art and a science, bankruptcy. It's not 2 + 2 = 4 all the time. These are human people with stories. And so I would get so anxious over the thought of would the trustee find something that he wanted or she wanted changed in the petition, and how would that look in front of the client? I had this fear of always looking good. I wanted to look so good. I don't mean ego, pat me on the back, but I mean I really wanted to be of service to my clients. And I never wanted a trustee to be like, why'd you put this here at number 22 when you should put it at number 8, and have the client be like, oh, Rafe's an idiot, which never happened. All of my clients loved everything I did. Separate sidebar, I learned how to develop a good bedside manner and a good client-centered practice, and I began to teach that at COEs for a while there too. So they did feel cared for and loved, but I still wanted them to get the best experience as possible. I used to feel so anxious. Oh my gosh, if I had the technique of knowing what I know now, where I could have just driven into the 341 meeting and go, anxious thought, let it go. And then it's back again 8 seconds later, anxious thought, let it go, let it go. Oh my gosh, who knows? I'd still maybe be practicing bankruptcy law today. I didn't leave the practice due to, anxiety or any feelings like that or breakdowns or anything like that. It was time for me to move on, and I wanted to work more in this field of working with business people and working towards their happiness and their success and what they really want out of life. But looking back, I noticed the difference in how I would feel about practicing as a practicing attorney. I had a lot of anxiety over it. Okay, so I think we have some time to keep going. So how does one do it? Like I said, just go download your app of choice, and I do a guided meditation. Here's one thing I learned. You don't have to suffer. Okay, you don't have to sit there with your knees pinched and your ankles crossed and your feet falling asleep. That's what used to happen to me. I used to sit there, and after 3 minutes, my back would be killing me and my feet would be asleep because I'm sitting cross-legged. And I'm like, how do people do this? How do they sit for an hour? And then somewhere I learned, I think it was my Baptiste training, I sat on 2 yoga blocks, okay? These 2 styrofoam blocks. I put them side by side. They had what I call a meditation pillow. I don't know the right term for it, but it's like a round circular pillow. It's like the size of a small pizza. It's about 5 inches, thick, and you can sit on it like a pillow, but the pillow's firm. It's got like bean bags, but you don't sink into it. It's like squishy but firm. Two yoga blocks, and my knees are at a comfortable angle, and my feet aren't falling asleep. And suddenly I could sit for 10 minutes. I'm like, I wish I would have known that long ago. So step 1 is be comfortable. You can be in your chair, or do the setup that I told you about. Get yourself a little setup. And then the methodology is you begin with your eyes open with a couple of deep breaths, and you breathe in through your nose and out through your nose, or you can breathe out through your mouth, and you breathe so deeply that your lower ribs expand. And you do that about 3 times with your eyes open. You're just settling in. And then, and like I said, maybe, it looks like there'll be time here. I'll do a guided meditation at the end of this episode, but that's the setup. And then, I set a timer. This be for 10 minutes. And a lot of times my thoughts would just totally run away with my to-do list and everything else. And I learned that was normal. And I would go back to recognizing my breath and counting my breath. And my thoughts would run away. Go back to counting my breath. And they say count to 10. And I think I still can only get to 3. before I've noticed my thoughts go away. And oh, by the way, I don't even notice my thoughts going away at the time that they go away. I only notice it. It feels like 2 minutes go by, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking again. So that's how it comes at it for me anyway. And so I really wanted the focus of this podcast to be aimed towards I can't do it. It doesn't work for me, and it's foo-foo. And I just wanted to share my story. If it helps anybody listening out there, that's my goal. And if you have any questions or you want to reach out to me, my email is rafe@rafegranger.com. And this is the Rafe Granger podcast. And just as long as you're not driving, okay, I would at this point, if you're listening to this in the car, turn it off. Don't listen to this guided meditation. It's not like it's going to put you in a catatonic state or anything like that. But, I just don't think it's recommended to do while driving. Save this till later. Be at home, and I'll go through a guided meditation like I do during my master classes and during my coaching sessions. Okay, so you want to have your eyes open and choose a comfortable seat, and that can be in your chair. If you're in your chair, you want your feet to be flat on the ground. You can have your hands on your thighs or on the arms of your chair. Again, your eyes are open, and you're just, coming into the space around you, breathing normally. And if you're seated down, you want to sit down, cross your legs, like I said, comfortably. And then you want to align your spine. You want to sit upright. You're not sitting ramrod straight, like military straight, but an upright spine. And the trick is, I'm going to take the back of your head and align it over the back so that your spine is a one line from like the top of the back of your skull all the way straight down. And that takes moving your head back just a little bit. And you can keep a neutral head where it's straight ahead, or even raise it up just a little bit, which opens up your throat airways, just a little titch. And then again, eyes open, just kind of settling in. You want to take 3 deep breaths. I like to do in through the nose, out through the mouth. I don't want to, breathe 3 times into the microphone, but you get the sense. Breathe 2 more times. In through the nose. Breathe so big your lower ribs expand. Out through the mouth. This last one, breathe in through the nose. Breathe into the small of your lower back in the back. Then breathe out. And go ahead and close your eyes. And then just breathe as normal. And listen to the sounds of the room around you. What do you hear? I used to think that meditation, you needed a completely quiet room, and that it had to be serene with like water bubbling in a pool, or birds chirping. And absent that, I wouldn't be able to meditate. But actually, you can use the sounds of the room around you to come into the space, to become present to where you are. And that's what makes meditation accessible anywhere. It could be in your office, take 10 minutes. It could be in your bedroom, it could be in your living room. The kids can be home and downstairs. A little bit, be in a space where they're not like walking in front of you, or they need your attention. Alert them, your children, if you have children, or your spouse. Say, I'm going to take 15 minutes to be by myself. But you're just breathing as normally at this point. You're listening to the sounds. And then count your breath. In through the nose, out through the nose is 1. Don't change your breath. Don't alter it. Don't judge it. You're just counting it. And if you lose your place, just pick up where you think you left off, or go back to 1. when thoughts come in, and they will, I want you to just notice, say, oh, there's a thought. And then go back to counting your breath. In through your nose, out through your nose is 1. And anytime a thought comes in, you just notice it very gently. Oh, there's a thought. And go back to counting. You may notice again a barrage of thoughts that come in, and you just notice them. And a good analogy I've heard is they're like clouds in the sky. If you're standing and looking up at the sky and looking at the clouds, you're not angry at the clouds. You're not judging the clouds. You're not attaching some thoughts or feelings to the clouds. Your thoughts are just like clouds. They're just there. And you want to be the person observing your thoughts like the third person watching the clouds, like the third person narrator. And you're just watching the thoughts go by. And you just go back to your breath. And you just go back to counting it. Now, let your mind do and think whatever it wants to think about. Release your hold on the breath, release your counting of the breath, and just let your mind go. Let it think about whatever it wants. Then go ahead and begin to listen to the sounds around you. Allow yourself to come back into the room.
feel your seat in the chair or the meditation pillow or the floor. Just feel the weight of the body as you come back. Feel your hands upon your thighs or the arms of the chair. Feel your shoulders. Let your shoulders drop if you haven't already. Just come on back into the space around you. And when you're ready and in your own time, go ahead and open your eyes. And then here's a little secret. Don't get up right away. Don't begin to race around or start to do. Take this time and check in with how you feel. So often we don't let our bodies be at rest so that our mind can rest. And by doing this practice, we're taking just 10 minutes to let the body rest and the mind to become at ease for a little while. And that's a meditation practice, and it's a practice for a reason, is it takes a lot of doing. Just do it over and over again. You don't have to even know why it works. But I think you'll find that if you do develop your own practice, it'll produce benefits not just for the day, but going on in your life and in your relationships, for yourself, for your happiness, for your work, and just your overall state of being. So again, thanks for listening, and I hope this helped and maybe clear up some misconceptions. Meditation's for everyone, not just for yogis. And again, if you have any questions about this or want to learn more, you can email me at rafe@rafegranger.com or visit my website at rafegranger.com. Hey, thanks for listening, and until next time, have a great day.